So, hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So, today we're going to cover what I'm sure everybody has been going over, the studio closures by Xbox Game Studios. Now, of course, we're going to see what we usually see every time one of these studio closures happens. The usual virtual signaling, the usual outrage, and then the usual ping-pong back and forth blaming that the gaming industry and gamers in general do. So, I'm going to go over why this is incredibly stupid, why this is incredibly naive, and why the actual argument that should be being made isn't being made. So first, let's start with the albatross in the room. The studios that were closed were not making high-profile games. Arguably, I keep getting the Hi-Fi Rush was a critical darling, it was very successful. That's arguable. And the fact that that game, along with a number of other games, ended up on Game Pass, you really don't know the actual sales figures of these titles. And this is part of the problem. Game Pass was a lie. And you say, well, you can't say that because Starfield was hugely successful. Stop for a second here. Phil Spencer himself said in an interview that Xbox Game Pass was a loss leader, meaning they never expected Game Pass to turn a profit or actually make money. The idea was bringing players into an ecosystem. How do you bring players into an ecosystem when you yourself don't actually own a number of high-profile game studios? Well, you pull an Embracer Group and you go out and you buy talent. This is not the first time that Xbox has done this. And this is the problem with gamers in the gaming industry. You have a very short memory of what goes on in your own industry. Microsoft itself has done this in the past, bought up studios and closed them because they don't know how to manage game studios. Just like Embracer Group thought that they were going to have billions of dollars in investment to go out and buy studios, Xbox went and just literally threw the piggy bank at the wall and said, let's just buy talent. Let's hedge out our competition and just buy out every game studio that we think we can get our hands on. Which is fine in principle. If you want to go and throw around your financial ability to consume studios, that's your right technically. But this was a monopoly in waiting, and the fact that there were not just Xbox fanboys, but people in the general gaming industry that saw this as a net positive for game developers was mind-boggling to me. In a democratic system, we should be abhorrently against notable monopolies. Embracer Group was a monopoly. It failed, and the fallout was horrendous. What in the hell did you think was going to happen with Microsoft? And if you need an example of this, I was around during the Electronic Arts apocalypse, when they bought up studios like Westwood Studios, one of the most fabled game studios in gaming history, and destroyed them as a studio. They've done it to BioWare. We have precedent for this. And how the Microsoft deal ever got out the door, well, we know how. Because Xbox basically lied and said, look, we're going to consume these studios into our umbrella, but we're not going to manage them. We're not going to reduce job profiles. We're not going to lay off people in mass amounts. That was literally their argument to the FTC and regulators overseas as to why this should go through. And they lied. Phil Spencer lied. You can be a huge fanboy of him and think he's the savior of gaming and a big friend of you, but in the end, he answers to shareholders, and he's an executive that works for a company whose number one goal isn't your happiness, isn't your satisfaction, it's making money. So what happened? You have to ask, what actually happened? Well, one, I think that a lot of these deals were set in motion prior to the fallout of COVID. So you had money men inside of Microsoft allocating funding, starting to get that ball rolling to do acquisitions. These acquisitions took probably 3 or 4 years. During that period of time, you saw record inflation in Europe. You had the attack in Ukraine, which soared fuel prices to the roof in Europe, leading to greater inflation and market instability. Then what did you have over here in America? Well, we flooded our economy with money. We just kept printing money and printing money. And what was the fallout? Record inflation, high fuel prices, reduced customer spending. Well, now you've lined up all these deals for studios that you think have future profitability. You don't know that. And now you're looking at the general public's willingness to consume media in an ecosystem that's full of multiple streaming services, multiple gaming services. You still have Steam, which is a behemoth. You have Epic Games, which, while not a huge market leader, has been chipping away slowly at even Microsoft's base of influence. So now you have these acquisitions go through because you can't stop them. They committed to them. They fought in court for them. Now these acquisitions happened. Okay, well, fine. Now you have the shareholders and the bean counters going through the books, looking at these studios and wondering, wait, were our valuations for these studios incorrect? Is Bethesda really worth, what was it, $27 billion? And now they start looking at these studios and they start looking at their output. You have Redfall, which was supposed to be a platform leader for Xbox this year, fail miserably. And you know what? I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but Bethesda as a studio has been fumbling for years. Rage 2 wasn't a success. Fallout 76 was an abominable nightmare that never should have been made. And the fact that they didn't learn from Fallout 76 and tried to force a studio that was noted for single-player titles and tried to force a live service on them, something that Arcane Austin had never done in their lives. Well, now you got the bean counters going through the books. They're undoubtedly looking at Ninja Theory and going, wait, we threw a ton of money at this studio and their output is going to be a 10-hour game that they've kind of backed off on advertising on, and it's going to be a day one Game Pass. As a person who is worried about finances, are you going to buy Senua's Sacrifice 2 for, let's say, $45, or are you going to spend the $15 on Game Pass for a month? What are you going to do? So then we have people virtue signaling for Phil Spencer. And I hate to say it, this man made a lot of mistakes. The execs at Microsoft are looking at him and going, what the hell did you get us into? And they're absolutely right. They spent billions of dollars of capital on game studios that are always a risky gamble. Gaming trends change on a dime. MMO developers know this. This has been a trend in the market for years. You tie that with the economic uncertainty in the world and a number of other things going on with workers' rights, unionization, healthcare costs. I can go on and on about the myriad of variables that they really didn't factor into this. Phil Spencer actually made a mistake. So then you have people making the argument, well, this wasn't Bethesda's decision. Well, that's another part of the problem. Because what were you guaranteed as a Bethesda fanboy in this acquisition? You were told that Microsoft was going to be as hands-off as humanly possible. They were the funding leader. Everything else they were going to leave up to the studios. But we kind of got an inkling that that wasn't true because Microsoft stepped in, delayed Starfield, and said, whoa. They finally got their hands into the pot and said, wait, everything in this pot is dog shit. What have you been doing for the last 6 years? And I have to wonder, are they now going through all their acquisitions and looking at these studios and going, wait, you were working with a budget of $200 million to make a single-player open-world game. And 6 years later, you have a non-playable demo that doesn't work, is poorly optimized, would require another 2 years and maybe $50 million of investment. We don't need you as a studio anymore. You're costing us an insane amount of money. Why the hell would we keep you open? And then we have the usual, game developers on Twitter virtue signaling about how horrendous this is and life-destroying it is for game developers. Well, I hate to tell you, but depending on what country you're in, this actually doesn't have much of an impact on you. And I know I'm going to hear, well, the games industry is contracting and it's going to be harder to get jobs. Yes and no. You have unemployment benefits, which depending on what country you're in can last up to 2 years. Some of these people are getting severance packages and a term of health care. In the EU countries, they get mandatory severance and they already have a public health care system. So just how impactful am I supposed to believe this is going to be? And this is where we get to the virtue signaling for a lot of these people, because I don't remember hearing you have this much outcry for teachers that are laid off. The thousands of auto workers that lose their jobs. The thousands of retail workers that lost their jobs post-COVID. The people being phased out by automation in the food industry. I don't see any of the outrage for that. But for some reason, because it's game developers, a form of entertainment, it's somehow thousands times worse. And that may sound heartless to you, but I have to ask, why does this matter this much to you? Why isn't the general state of work, employment, healthcare, all of the other things that go into employment more of a worry for you than just the gaming industry? And I will admit, there are a few people who actually open their mouths and don't just blanket see this as a problem with capitalism, but a problem with how we view work and people in general. But on the flip side, you have the people that are absolutely virtual signaling for clicks, and it's disgusting, and it's repulsive. And then we have the outrage about Mike Ybarra. I hate to tell it to you. Mike Ybarra has always been a piece of trash. If you ask anybody that worked at Activision Blizzard, Mike Ybarra is an idiot. He is wholly inhuman and has no idea how people function, and has chronically come out with some of the most brain-dead and dumb statements regarding workers, employment, and devs, and gaming, and just as an executive, he's an idiot. And this man, while he's virtual signaling on Twitter, got an enormous payout from the Activision Blizzard deal. Don't kid yourself. Everybody, cries about Bobby Kotick and what he got out of the deal. Mike Ybarra is sitting pretty on money and doesn't have to worry ever again. And the same goes for Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer could be fired by Microsoft tomorrow for the things that he's done. The man is a multi-millionaire. Doesn't have to worry about a damn thing. So this is where I'm going to say what I have said a million times over and over again to everybody out there in the gaming industry, and most notably the gamers in general. Because as we saw with what happened with Helldivers this week, and yes, I'm going to bring up Helldivers in this, because Helldivers is a cautionary warning as to the problem with games publishers. Games publishers don't care about gamers. Game publishers don't care about devs at all. They care about their bottom lines. And they will do anything they want to, as long as you don't resist. And here's where the Helldivers one was, while it was a small win, and it didn't last long because gamers went back to doing exactly what they do always, it was a little bit of a glimmer of hope. Because the last thing you should be doing is celebrating publishers gobbling up indies. And this is my little talk to indie developers and the people that run their companies. You're going to sit here and talk to me about the morality of layoffs. Don't sell your fucking companies to big conglomerates. If you're supposedly not worried about profits and money, then why the fuck would you sell your company to somebody like Electronic Arts or Ubisoft or Microsoft? Why? Why? If you're so virtuous, if you're such a beacon and a paragon of morality in the gaming industry, why does money matter so much to you? Don't be a hypocrite. Be honest. Money matters. Money is important. Without money, without venture capital, the gaming industry wouldn't be as freaking huge as it is. And that is, in fact, part of the problem. So every gamer out there, I'm going to say this again. When you see an indie dev like the guy that made Manor Lords, or the guy that made Spaceborne 2, These are the people that you should be throwing your money at. And you shouldn't be demanding that these people are on Game Pass. Pay for your entertainment. It's that simple. And if you're not going to pay for your entertainment, bootleg as hard as you fucking can. Don't virtue signal. Don't lie. Don't go on the interwebs and try to tell me that you are a more moral person than me when I pay for my entertainment and you want all your entertainment on a subscription platform that does not pay devs. Because Game Pass does not pay devs. It is a one-time investment into a studio, regardless of whether they pass or fail. And Xbox actually robs developers of game sales. It's why Larian said, hey, yeah, we'll go on Game Pass, but we are not going to be a Game Pass exclusive. We are not going to be platform locked by Microsoft. Microsoft, you want our game? You come. You come, you give us money, you tell us what terms you want. But we are not exclusive. And gamers do not understand this. A lot of people are financially illiterate, and that is the problem with this planet. Because there are a lot of stupid people that don't understand decisions that are made. And don't understand the risks involved. When somebody as big as Microsoft decides to just go on a fucking unmitigated shopping spree. With no regulation whatsoever. Anti-competitive practices should be anti-consumer, should be banned, should be regulated, and there are laws in the book. This deal never should have happened. And going forward, people should be pressing regulators a lot harder to be more transparent as to exactly why these deals went through. Because I guarantee you, somebody in the EU got paid off. Somebody in the American government, in the FTC, got paid off. Money talks. Thanks everybody for my little rant. Catch you on the flip side.